Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the Anfield Index Podcast. It's episode, just accessing computer. Computer, what episode is it?
345.
Thank you, computer. It's episode 345 and I'm Trev Downey podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. I'm joined today by my computer, by also Lisa Marie Hanahan, who doubles as both, and by Guy Drinkel. And we're going to have a little chat with you and amongst ourselves about the Reds and how they're getting on of late. It's obviously going to be heavily football weighted, but we will have other tangents and asides. And as ever, we'll begin with a couple of little moments to get the show going. And my one, I had actually a choice. I've gone from being fallen down on the job for a couple of weeks in a row to actually, I had my pick of several fantastic things this time around. And I've gone with this, which is a little story by a lad called Mark Haynes. And he's talking about his encounter with Roger Moore, who obviously most people know as the James Bond after Connery. And the reason I love this story is because I keep hearing about what a lovely fellow Roger Moore was, and it's heartening in an era where you hear so many bad celebrity stories, and there have been plenty of late even. So it's nice to hear about a fella who actually seems like he was a good skin, and this story is just fantastic on several levels. So just bear with me as I read down through this little tale by Mark Haynes about his meeting with Roger Moore, which again, he's my favorite Bond because I'm actually that old that he was my Bond, if you know, when I was coming through watching these things the first time in the cinema. So that's how it goes. So here we go. As a 7-year-old kid in about 1983, in the days before first-class lounges at airports, I was with my granddad in Nice Airport and saw Roger Moore sitting at the departure gate reading a paper. I told my granddad I'd just seen James Bond and asked if I could go over so I could get his autograph. My granddad had no idea who James Bond or Roger Moore were, so we walked over and he popped me in front of Roger Moore with the words, "My grandson says you're famous. Can you sign this?" As charming as you'd expect, Roger asks my name and duly signs the back of my plane ticket. A fulsome note full of best wishes. I'm ecstatic, but as we head back to our seats, I glance down at the signature. It's hard to decipher it, but it definitely doesn't say James Bond. My granddad looks at it, half figures out it says Roger Moore. I have absolutely no idea who that is, and my heart sinks. I tell my granddad he's signed it wrong, that he's put someone else's name, and so my granddad heads back to Roger Moore, holding the ticket, which he's only just signed. I remember staying by our seats and my granddad saying, "He says you've signed the wrong name. He says your name is James Bond." Roger Moore's face crinkled up with realization and he beckoned me over. When I was by his knee, he leant over, looked from side to side, raised an eyebrow and in a hushed voice said to me, "I have to sign my name as Roger Moore because otherwise Blofeld might find out I was here." He asked me not to tell anyone that I'd just seen James Bond, and he thanked me for keeping a secret. I went back to our seats, and my nerves absolutely jangling with delight. My granddad asked me if he'd signed James Bond. "No," I said, "I got it wrong. I was working with James Bond now." Many, many years later, I was working as a scriptwriter on a recording that involved UNICEF, and Roger Moore was doing a piece to camera as an ambassador. He was completely lovely, and while the cameramen were setting up, I told him in passing the story of when I'd met him in Nice airport. He was happy to hear it, and he had a chuckle. He said, "Well, I don't remember, but I'm glad you got to meet James Bond." So that was lovely. And then he did something so brilliant. After the filming, he walked past me in the corridor, heading out to his car. But as he got level, he paused, looked both ways, raised an eyebrow, and in a hushed voice said, "Of course I remember our meeting in Nice, but I didn't say anything in there because those cameramen, any one of them could be working for Blofeld." I was delighted at 30 as I had been at 7. What a man. What a tremendous man. There's a nice little feel-good story for you at the start of the show. Hopefully people will appreciate that. I loved it when I heard it and I wanted to pass it on. Lisa Marie, what did you think of James Bond as you were coming through the various age categories? Who is your favorite?
Okay, I have a confession. I have
on.
never...
You're not going to say you've
never seen a full James Bond movie.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
and I think just because of the traditional thing, I've always kind of think of Connery and as Bond, just because. So yeah, but no, I've seen parts and pieces of them, but I've certainly never gone to the movie theater and seen one. And yeah, I've never actually sat down and watched one from beginning to end.
Well, you absolutely need to get your act together there and begin with a Roger Moore movie now that you know he's such a lovely fella. It'll make you feel all warm inside. You apparently have a little tale for us yourself.
Well, first of all, the plague has hit the Hanahan household, and I don't mean the 2020 COVID plague, but Mary Kristen has the cold, an ugly cold that it could be the flu. I've just not bothered to take her in to test her for it. And it seems that Mr. H is kind of flirting with it as well. So I'm keeping MC locked in a room, hoping that, we can keep it confined over to there because I don't have time for that.
Yeah, it's very much my attitude to sickness. I've again similar. There's been some sort of a bug in the household, and I get up every day and I feel kind of passably crap, and I just go, I'm not having this. It's literally just pure. I don't know if it's working, but I haven't succumbed fully yet. I'm a bit lacking in energy, a bit lethargic. I was almost dead after my training today, but my line is, I'm not having this. It may be a bit stronger than that when I say it, but I know I do appreciate that little.
No, but that wasn't necessarily my story. That was just an insight to the week here in the Hanahan household.
Oh.
But no, apparently. And I don't know how much you all pay attention, our American listeners, obviously more so, it's hurricane season. Hurricane season is generally like June to November, I think. And, they name the hurricanes, they give them names once they're a tropical depression, I think. And so apparently this week there was a Hurricane Lisa.
Ooh.
She was only Category 1. She made landfall in Belize on Wednesday. She's already been downgraded to a tropical depression, so she didn't do a whole lot. But
downgraded to a breeze.
Yeah. She hit Belize and was downgraded to a breeze. Something along those lines, yes, guys. So, yes, there was a Hurricane Lisa, but she didn't do a whole lot, which is fine because I'd prefer to be known as that type of hurricane as opposed to, a Category 5 that, caused catastrophic destruction and, anyway.
Well, you see, there is a distinct issue with this story already because, as we know, and as several of the lads know, because they kept forgetting at the start, you obviously do prefer to go by Lisa Marie.
I do prefer to go by both my names. That is correct.
I think if the hurricane had been called Hurricane Lisa Marie, I think we'd be looking at an absolute devastation, frankly.
Likely.
I'm just.
But they generally don't do double names for the for hurricanes. It's a single thing. So, but yes, but I had like 3 different people on Wednesday go, "Hey, did you know?" No, not until now. So anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what they're playing at here. It's just I think they go like with the next letter of the alphabet. I think that's how they do it over here with storms.
Well, here they assign at the beginning of the season there is a list, and and it alternates. It's between male and female names. And so, like, if A is Alice, then B is Brian or whatever. But they have a list at the beginning of the season, and they announce that these are the ones. Now, there was one year that there were so many named storms that they actually had to go to the next year's list because they had gotten all the way through the alphabet. And then once a hurricane is bad enough, like, say, Katrina, that famously hit New Orleans in 2005, they retire the name and they don't use it anymore. So.
Yeah, they should just like call it Hurricane Bastard or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
We endured the ravages of Storm Ian recently, which was every bit as normal as the name might suggest. Just a bit of nothing much happened. I think something blew across my garden, possibly. Anyway, Guy, I know, my friend, that you have, because we've done a little bit of a pre-match workout on this. Yes. I know that you have a film for us, and I want you to introduce it however you like, but I will just talk a little bit out of school by letting people know that when I clicked on the link that you sent us, my initial reaction to the poster was, well, that's not real, because it looks so bad or photoshopped. And then when we actually watched the trailer, aghast.
It was real.
It was so real. And I need you to tee it up so that we can have a chat about it.
Just before teeing, I have Googled Hurricane Guy. Picture of a shirtless man comes up holding an American flag in the middle of a street.
That's typical hurricane behavior.
There we go. And Pierce Brosnan was my Bond, and GoldenEye is the best. I'm just saying. So this film, I was looking for a subject. I was looking for bonfire night films, firework films, but they were all coming up July the 4th, obviously, for American reasons. And the only bonfire film is, of course, V for Vendetta, which is much too terrible to get on this part of the show.
Yes.
Obviously. So, I Googled whose birthday it was. It is Matthew McConaughey's birthday on November the 4th. Now, people of a younger generation might think Matthew McConaughey does good films. But ladies and gentlemen, Matthew McConaughey used to be a meme of an actor. I'm sure you remember the films such as Sahara.
Yes.
Awful rom-com films that he's in. So I just went for a list of his worst films. And I have discovered possibly the worst-looking film with a brilliant cast I have ever seen in my life. It is called TIPTOES, ladies and gentlemen. It stars Matthew McConaughey, who was obviously not Matthew McConaughey back then. Your favourite Kate Beckinsale, Trev.
Yep.
Patricia Arquette.
Yep.
And Gary Oldman, who I imagine is very much seen as one of the better actors, maybe the last generation? Maybe this generation, anyway. That Churchill film wasn't too far long ago, was it? Yeah. So, in the poster, we've got Gary Oldman looking very much like David Spade.
Yes, he does.
Absolutely David Spade. I genuinely thought it was David Spade, especially when I read what this film is. So,
and just before you go any further, perhaps that's because of the effect that you're going to explain that they have to put on him, because obviously we know Gary is not a tall man, but something weird is going on with his head, and he's got that David Spade haircut, and he's got a moustache. The poster itself, have a look at it, folks. It just looks like people cut some pictures out of a magazine randomly and stuck them on a background. But we're getting to the good part, or whatever.
No, the good part. You were right, don't worry. Storyline. Two brothers a dwarf called Rolf, which is Gary Oldman, and one typical size, Steve, which is Matthew McConaughey. When Steve's girlfriend Carol becomes pregnant, the pair are fearful that the baby will inherit the dwarfism gene. Matters are complicated still further when she finds herself falling in love with Rolf.
Wow.
Would you like a quote?
Oh, yes.
Always.
So this is Carol, this is Kate Beckinsale. Have you ever been involved with a little person sexually? Now, please wait for the punctuation here, because this sounds very noncy. Stephen Bedelia. I don't know why it's listed as first name. So, Stephen. No, just kids stuff, you know. Punctuation, people. You know, all the kids would come over. We'd sit in a circle, play doctor and that kind of thing. Couldn't have been more than 10 or 12, so that doesn't count. Carol. So you had a circle jerk with a bunch of little people. I would have loved to see that. Stephen, you would like to see that. Carol. Yes, I would.
My God. How did that get made? That's just, I mean, it's 11 times wrong. How is that possible? And it just goes on. I mean, the trailer, folks, go on to IMDb, look at TIPTOES, watch the trailer. I don't know how long you're going to last, because I was watching it and I wanted to watch it through so that we could talk about it here. But I think I came up with the line there, I've seen enough.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even last the trailer.
If you don't think this sells it just yet, people, this was part of the official selection of the 2004 Sundance Film Festival.
Yeah, that's the most remarkable part of it. It's on the poster. Again, the homemade in someone's art project for when they were 7 years old poster.
This has 4.3 stars on IMDb. I have found worse rated films than this, Trev.
Yes, you have.
Yeah.
But I would like literally not this memey character I'm doing, but I think I'd literally rather watch any Shark Octopus versus Monkey Man thing ever over this film, because this looks like the worst film I've ever seen in my life.
It just looks like you probably just could not get through it.
No.
Because you just would be cringing at every moment. Now, they do have that, I don't know what they've done in 2002 with the special effects here, because it is quite, I mean, I know what you're saying when you say it looks awful, but not the effect part. The effect part actually looks quite...
To be fair, I was proper expecting like knees on shoes type stuff when I first saw it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do, yeah. They've actually, whatever way they've done it, it actually is quite effective. But it is, without doubt, just wrong. That's the one thing. My one-word review of this film, wrong. And probably you owe it to yourself to go and look and see why, as with all of Guy's suggestions, because it certainly won't leave you in a hurry. I'll put it that way. Remarkable stuff, my friend, and very, very worthy addition to your specific canon that you're building for us here. At some point, we're going to have to make some sort of a playlist and put them all together so we can do a top 10 or something.
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Now, from the ridiculous to the sublime, and I want to get us focused on our Liverpool chat by doing the usual things of asking you what really stood out for you and what in terms of high point and low point, because I find that those discussions can often go in several different ways, which we like. But just so people understand what's coming up in the show, we're going to look at our highlights and lowlights of the last period of time since we did a show. We're going to have a look ahead at the fixtures to come. We're going to focus particularly on the puzzle that is the derby match. And then we're going to finish off with a chat about topics that we might like to do an AIP on while the World Cup is on. And I've asked the guys to come up with at least one, and if I have one as well, then I think we're good to go. So let's get the ball rolling. And I hope I'm not stealing anyone's thunder when I tell you all that my highlight of the week was, whilst I was working the game, which is my new reality for the last 5 years, a match involves a laptop. Seeing Darwin Núñez getting awarded a goal in 99 minutes after a VAR check filled me with intense joy, primarily because I was chuffed for the lad, and he's my extended highlight of the week because I find him quite definitively mad. As a fella, I think he's the most unpredictable player we've had in ages, and I think that's in a good and a bad way. And I kind of like the bad way as well sometimes, because we're so used to at our club fellas who are just, by the book type lads, and just they never do anything. Their football can be unpredictable, their behaviour not so much. I find myself warming very much to this kid now, and that's in the context of looking at him going down in the previous game, like in a really embarrassing way, tap on the head, and he's holding his face and he's doing the rolling around thing. And a unit that size, it was embarrassing. And actually, there was a delay. He waited and then he did it, which makes it look all the worse, of course. But that side of him is only there because the other side of him is there as well. And again, in that game against Napoli, I'm watching him going, challenging for a corner. And he shoves a guy once, he shoves a guy twice. The guy kind of comes back at him and he cuffs him around the back of the head with his forearm. I mean, this is mad stuff. And again, as Jan pointed out, when the first goal goes in, he thinks he's scored it and he's off on his own celebrating. And then he has to come back to the crowd later on looking, wearing a bit of a daft smile after it's clearly been awarded to Mo. I'm not even sure he understands that. So it was such a relief for me to see that another did it or didn't it happens at the very death, and it goes to VAR and it's awarded to the kid. And I think these little things are going to add up. And I think these little things are going to be essential for us in the second half of the season, because I think he will be essential for us in the second half of the season in a way that, if we're going to achieve anything, he's going to have to be at the core of it, because we know, realistically speaking, the recruitment will probably be small or none in January. So we're looking at this group of players to keep powering through that European competition. And I have high hopes for him doing that. That's my highlight of the week. I've gone off on one there a bit, but I just did want to get that out of the way nice and early. Lisa Marie, what about you as you look back on the week that was?
I think my highlight of the week was all the kids coming on at the end of the Napoli game.
That was great.
They just seemed to infuse some energy or something. I don't know what it was. And I mean, I was watching the game on Tuesday, but not super closely because, again, it was work time. But I had it on my iPad here next to my computer as I was working. But there was just something that seemed to, I guess, electrify things a little bit when those substitutions were made, and as we say, the kids were brought on. I just liked that. So I thought that was fun.
It was fun on so many levels because you're right. It did electrify the performance a bit. And sometimes that can be in a bad way or be very scattershot. But we started to play. Now, obviously, that's a broken team. And they know that, they can't get what they need out of the game. And they don't really need anything out of the game anyway. So we have to clarify or qualify
Yes.
in that regard. But
Agreed.
it was just lovely to see Calvin
It was just nice to see. And and it felt like after the game on Saturday, I mean, I was grasping at any little bit of positivity that we could find. Because we'll get to that. But no, there was just something nice about it, and seeing, just seeing, what they could do, and they, they certainly didn't make things any worse, which, I mean, not that I was concerned about that, but it did just sort of seem to push us over. And I mean, weren't both goals scored after they came on?
Yep.
I mean, that right?
That's the thing. The subs happen. Let me just get this on. I have my actual raw report here. Oh no, actually, Mo scores. Then we bring on Ramsey.
Then they bring him on. Okay, I guess I was confusing it.
But we do have a couple of chances in the aftermath. At least 2 chances, and then there's the goal.
The second, the second goal.
And like I say, just to see that Ramsey exists and is a good footballer.
Yes. And he looked. I mean, he didn't look out of place, I thought. I mean, there was, a nice level of confidence there, and so I just thought overall, the introduction of all 3 of them, at the time they came on was just nice.
I agree wholeheartedly, and this is going to feed into our later discussion, I think, in a way that's quite relevant to the Derby game. What about yourself, Guy, in terms of a highlight of the period since we last broadcast?
The final whistle at Leeds. That was the only good thing from that game. I'm not really sure of a positive. I think the Napoli game, just overall, considering the horror show that was the Leeds match, was just overall very positive. I think that is the most cop-out answer ever, and I will not apologise for it. But no, I know what I'll go with. More equaling the European goal-scoring record, because he's a freak, and that's what he does. He equals then breaks records. So I think, is it 49, but all of his have been in the Champions League, obviously, and I think Gerrard, a decent amount were obviously in the Europa League, and the UEFA Cup, obviously, because that used to exist. So yeah, I'd probably go with Mo. Obviously, he'll be bigger when he breaks that record, hopefully in the round of 16 or whatever the next round actually is. But yeah, Mo, proper crap goal, but they all count. And a crap goal is the best type of goal. So I'll go with Mo equaling that record and hopefully passing it whoever the hell we play next.
Yeah, for so many reasons, that was close to being my highlight as well. And the main one is I want to get back on the track where Mo is just doing things that nobody else has done, and passing milestones repeatedly, and it's been the hardest part of this season and the end of last season for me has been to see him not at the level that he was only 8-9 months ago. And there are some hints that he's getting right back to it over recent weeks. And we've had, no doubt we'll talk about it when we're chatting about lowlights. We've had some very grim enough moments, but I don't think you can put blame on him for any of those.
No, and he's on course for about 30-odd goals this season. He's been playing right wing back half the season, so
Yes, yeah, exactly. There are lots of signs that he's getting back to where he needs to be. And whatever I said about Núñez earlier on, it applies just as much, if not more, to Mo Salah, who's, as important a footballer as we've had at the club for years. So couldn't pick a better one than the 2 if you have picked out there. Now we get to the fun stuff, which is of course the opposite end of the spectrum, which is the low light. And there's lots to pick from. I'll be very specific with mine. It's a very specific thing. It's the fact that the loss of 3 points against Leeds and the loss of 2 points against Nottingham Forest means that we are now 5 points worse off than we should have been. And in the difference that makes basically when you have a look at the table is quite dramatic. Because if you have a look at that table, you will see that Chelsea, I think, I'm almost 100% sure, are on 21 points. And that means that, in a different world, we could have been on the same points total as them. We still wouldn't be where we'd want to be by a long way, because Chelsea certainly aren't. But you'd be in the picture for top four. We are now so far off the picture for top four that it really has me genuinely worried in terms of whether or not it's a thing that we can achieve. Not because I don't think we can put a good run together, but because I do think of the teams ahead of us, if you imagine that Arsenal are going to have enough to hang in there in top four, and you may or may not think that, if you assume that City are outright favourites for the title, being a point off the pace at this stage, if you assume that Tottenham, our next opponents, are going to keep getting half-decent results, although they've had a couple of crappy results in the league recently. If you assume that Newcastle may well go out and spend some of this fortune that they have in January and go against the grain when they see they have an opportunity here to get Champions League football. And Manchester United will obviously do Manchester United things, which could involve a solid run. And Chelsea have a wonderful squad and are obviously adjusting to a new setup there. When you think as well that we're behind Fulham and Brighton in the league, that should give you pause. And for me, this simple, stark fact that getting top four football will now represent a massive achievement. As big an achievement as when we got it at the tail end of that massive underperforming season only 2 years ago. That's hard to take. That's really, really hard to take. I would back us to do it. It's a huge ask, but I'd back us to do it. I'm not going to put any qualifiers about whether or not we're going to, if we get X, Y, or Z player through the door in January, because again, chatting to young Malby last night, he believes that that's never ever the strategy at Liverpool. And he's saying that in a way that, he's been told, obviously we've had January recruits and it's worked out well, but some of those were just circumstantial things as opposed to when we have to go out and do something. It's not something that we plan for. It's something that we do if it works out. And I don't think it's going to work out for 2 or 3 players of the kind of caliber that we'd need to say, well, now I'm confident. I still remain semi-confident that this group of ours can get back in there, but man alive, it's a big ask now. What about your low light of the week? Guy, I'll go to you first on this one.
The lead starting whistle.
You love those whistles.
Yeah, well, I loved one of them. It wasn't even the Leeds winner. It was the feeling that we were never going to win that game at 1-0. I just had the feeling that they'll win or we'll draw. Like, I never had the feeling we will mentality monster this and get away with one. I just watched that game and they've brought on fast lads. They're more likely to score here. I was sat there just patiently waiting for us to fuck it up. And then about 7 of our lads all took a turn fucking up.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh... I was obviously pissed off, but it was almost dejection at that point. Because I expected it. And that's kind of what this season's become. It's like... You become unarsed. I'm annoyed in the moment, but I try not let it ruin my weekend anymore. Know what I mean? It's like... I haven't watched Match of the Day much this season. If we lose against... Well, no, we're playing Sunday. I don't really watch Match of the Day too. But if we play Saturday next weekend, I'll just watch Match of the Day. I probably won't watch our game because it'll re-piss me off. But stuff like that. I just try not to let it ruin my weekend anymore. And I know we're... What? How many games are we into the season? 12 for us.
12 we've played, yeah.
Yeah, so we're not quite halfway there, but we're like a third of the way through the season and sat there like, if we get top 4, it'll be amazing. Is it more likely to finish 8th and avoid the Europa League? Like, I changed my name to Operation Finish 8th after that game. Because I think it's more likely we finish 8th than the top 4.
Probably most likely is that we'll finish 5th or 6th.
I can't do that though, Trev, because Dave won't do Europa. I'm not doing it.
I agree with you entirely, man. I agree. Like it's not an option for us, and I don't mean that in an entitled. Do you know what?
Fucking is entitled.
own it, Trev. Own it. I do mean that in an entitled way. This group of players are way too good for that shit, and I don't want
Trev,
us. Yeah.
Lisa Marie messaged me about talking about my name. I reminded her of teams we played in 2012. Do you remember the project Angie Machmakala from Russia?
How could anyone forget Angie Makakla? What? I mean, you're playing teams on a Thursday night that you've never heard of before, that maybe they might have been set up last Tuesday by some lad, in Slovenia who came into a fortune. It's just...
It was just funny that he rocked out and there was Roberto Carlos and Samuel Eto'o in the middle of some town in Russia. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
That was a very good... Yeah, that's a very good point. It's amazing what oil will do. Yes. Let's just leave it at that. But like, I agree with you entirely, and it's almost like a fusion of the 2 points there that we've both made there, because I can't. It is entirely entitled, and I make no apology for it. I cannot dream of being involved in that. The amount of games that you have to play and what that would do to a squad when you're trying to and intending to challenge for a league.
I think they have fixed that, to be fair, the amount of games. I think it's just the Thursday, Sunday crack.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing good about it.
Absolutely.
Whatever way you look at it. And Lisa Marie, just while we're on the subject, in case you don't come near it or we don't come bouncing back to it again, we've got my take on, I have this sort of eternal optimist take that we might put a charge together and sneak in to the top 4. It will require form that we haven't seen to date and consistency that we haven't seen to date. And it goes against most logical appraisals, having looked at how not ourselves we are. But I'm thinking about a hard reboot after the World Cup and hoping that we can do that. That's why I'm basing my optimism on. Guy is less optimistic and actually, rather than finish 5th or 6th, would probably embrace the madness and let us drop down the table a bit further so we don't have to have anything. Of course, that will have a knock-on effect. Let's not fool ourselves in terms of the potential for recruitment, if any ever existed, and if our budget is not some sort of a story told to children to make them happy. Where do you think we're going to finish?
Again, this is all new territory for me. I had commented to Guy on his name change on Twitter, and he mentioned he didn't want to do the Europa League, and I said I can't even pronounce most of the teams that are typically in the Europa League and need a map to locate where they are. So I mean, I guess if we're going to try to look at pluses, it will expand my knowledge of European geography, but I prefer not to. I'm a pretty well-read person, and I can probably do that without the Europa League. I'm torn. I mean, I hang on to that, where we were at, the turn of the year last season, beginning of January, when it was all looking awful. And I mean, by no means did it look like we were going to drop out of the top 4, but, I said at that time, I believe they've got it in them. And, I will continue to believe that until it is no longer possible. And so I'm kind of clinging to that, but I'm going to say that I'm not saying a statement like that with as much confidence as I was back in January.
Yeah. The season before last.
It's kind of like with my fingers crossed behind my back.
Yeah.
And my wishing star in my pocket, but 4-leaf clover and all the superstitions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you're right. I'm kind of right there with you, Trev. But I do, on one hand, I think, okay, if we can't finish in the top 4, yeah, let's finish 8th so we don't have to deal with this, Europa crap. But then you think, are we going to have enough to be able to reinforce the squad to get us back to Champions League the following season? I don't know. It starts to make my head hurt, and so I just stopped thinking about it.
Yeah, listen, I think that's the effect it has on most people. And just to elaborate and bring back in the point that Guy made earlier on, I mean, there is a frankly bananas mindset change that we're all having to adjust to. And I said last night on the show when I was talking to Jan that initially I found it almost a relief, I'll be honest, because it was clear we weren't going to have enough to stay toe-to-toe with City. So I thought, okay, well, if we're out of the running for being champions, let's just tuck in second and all will be well. And then it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And now it's at a stage where the novelty of the tension being gone out of every game, and it was a very real thing, where you felt absolutely beside yourself with tension for every game, especially last season when we could have won every single thing. I don't like this current thing. I don't enjoy it at all. I'm sure you're the same, Lisa Marie. There's nothing fun about it. But
no, I will say that was another one. You saying that, Trevor, just kind of, that was one of the things that was sort of a positive from the game on Tuesday, is that, we didn't need to win it. We didn't, obviously we wanted to do well, but I didn't feel that same level of tension going into that match as, has been there in, basically everyone so far this season. So it was enjoyable. That was, just another positive from Tuesday. It was enjoyable to watch. I mean, we played better, but the fact that there just wasn't that whatever hanging over our head that, oh my gosh, we've got to do well. And, like we need the points for the league, or we need the points to be able to advance in the group, or any of that. None of that was necessary. And so you could just kind of relax and watch two teams play.
You'd love, wouldn't you, that the World Cup would come around and that stories would start breaking about how officially agreements have been made in theory, at least, with several excellent footballers and Liverpool. And then you could just go, fuck it. Just let the season happen. And then we just start again. Because I think it's something that we every one of the fans of the current era and the people who stretch back further into the dark ages, like myself, would believe that there aren't enough trophies for this group. There aren't enough trophies to mark the greatness of what this group has been, and not by half enough trophies. You think of 3 Champions League finals, and each and every one of them should have been won, in my opinion. And you think of a Europa League final that we did get to in Kloppo's first proper campaign, and that's left on the table again. There's other finals that we lost. I don't want this era to be always the bridesmaids. I understand we won a couple of trophies, and I don't want to hear from these perpetually upbeat, smug types that you got your trophy. Can you not just be happy? No, I can't. I want more trophies. Well, why don't you want more trophies? And I want more trophies, not necessarily for me, although I do want all the nice things for me. I want them for these guys, for this manager, for this group of players. Virgil van Dijk should have at least 2 or 3 Champions League medals because he's that good. He's so much better than some of the absolute gobshites who turn out for Real Madrid, who have 89 medals. So we need to address it, and we need to address it before these players age out. I'm thinking Mo and Virgil in particular, Ali. These guys deserve these things, and I want to see us. I want to see the club try and work towards that. Now we have one topic left on the football. Then I'm keeping an eye on the clock as well before we move away from that. I have gotten lowlights and highlights for him. I have, yeah. So with that in mind, we do have obviously Tottenham tomorrow, Sunday. We're recording this Friday night, and Tottenham is Sunday. There's not much point in us saying much about it. Their recent league form hasn't been tremendous. Ours has been abject. So they've got some injuries. We've got some injuries. Who knows how this will go? The only thing that's a real factor that we're going to have to address is the fact that our away form is so dire that will obviously be a factor. So we'll get to see whether there is that little bit of a build or if it's yet another false dawn. We've had several of those. That will be whatever that will be, and we'll talk about it on the next show. But there is a game coming up midweek after that, between now and when we speak next on this particular podcast. And it's a cup game against Derby. And I wanted your take on what you would do there. Because unsurprisingly, I've gone full circle back to the whole idea of I've no interest in this competition whatsoever. And yet, if we're being honest, that is tremendously entitled chat. And for the second time in the show, I have to acknowledge it. I think young Malby made a great point on the show last night when he talked about how last year, when we were winning games in the early rounds of the two domestic cups, we had a reasonably full squad that was buoyant and flying, and you had players who were looking to make a mark, and therefore you had a very perfect storm situation for taking on domestic cups. You wanted Diogo Jota was going, I'm in the team. Someone else is going, no, I'm in the team. Somebody else is going, no, I'm in the team. And everybody's trying hard, and you've got this depth, and that's pretty important, I think. But none of that matters to me now, because if we're not looking at Calvin Ramsey and Bajcetic and Quevin Kelleher and all the other up and coming kids that we've got, maybe plus one old hand in defence, maybe a Joel Matip. I don't know what to tell you. I don't see how we can do anything other than that. Now, my take is just my take. What's yours on this, Guy? I mean, what do you want to see happening versus what do you think actually will?
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own two-footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m, Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I want to see young lads and lads coming back from injury, basically.
Yeah.
Kelleher, Ramsey, Bajcetic, if Naby Keita's alive and has limbs, whack him in. Ox, probably first minutes of the season. No idea what we'll do up front. Do a raffle from the under-21s. Like, you don't even have to be a striker. If you're a goalkeeper and you fancy a crack, have a go. Because if Mo Salah or Darwin Núñez or Bobby touches the grass in that game, Jesus Christ. Like, I enjoyed doing the cup run. Obviously, I did the Raws and stuff like that, and it was fun as it progressively got less shit. Because the closer you got, it was like, okay, we might win this. And then it's like, we'll play Norwich. It's boring, but okay, it's done. And then once you get round to the Man City game, it's like our best performance of the season. But this season's so different. We have to cram in so many, like, when we come back from the World Cup, we'll have to rush through the League Cup, the FA Cup, 20, whatever the hell many league games are left, like 19 league games or whatever it is. Champions League, like, albeit I said it, we'll most likely finish 8th. If we have a slim glimmer of a chance of top 4, you just have to bin the cups off. And I think we may, maybe not the FA Cup because people take that a bit more seriously. I think you'll see maybe the bigger teams take it less seriously, especially the ones in Europe, because they just have to. Like, I don't even know when they'll fit these games in, because I'm guessing the Champions League starts back up in February. Are we going to do like 3 rounds of the League Cup in January when other countries are off on winter break? Like, it's just stupid. But anyway, when did we play Wednesday? On Wednesday or Tuesday,
yeah,
whatever.
Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday. Yeah, just the young lads.
So what about? I'm just looking at the squad here. We could theoretically put out. I presume Big Queebian gets a game.
Mm-hmm.
We could put out a halfway solid defence. You could have Calvin Ramsey playing at left back. You could have Nat Phillips and Joe Gomez at centre half, and you could have bring back the ghost of Jim Milner to play right back. I think he's going to be.
Tsimikas would be fine, and then Calvin at right back.
Oh, sorry, Calvin's a right back, of course. Yeah. Sorry, pardon me. Yeah, I've got that completely skew-ways. Okay, so Tsimikas, and then if you move into midfield, as you say, Ox, maybe Curtis, maybe Harvey, maybe Naby, they're the ones who are going to get the minutes there, or maybe Milner plays in midfield. And then in terms of coming up with 3 up front, that's where it's going to be like a lad from the kids who wins a raffle, plus Fabio Carvalho. And I think probably Jota. I think Jota might play.
Is he?
I think he's out.
He's still injured.
He's still out, yeah.
How long is he out for?
After
I don't think he's supposed to be back
missing the World
Cup.
Yeah,
because he's going to miss the World Cup.
Oh, oh my God, never believe what you read. I literally yesterday read something entirely, this is like a magazine, not a website article that I just clicked on, and it said that he was doing really well and was going to be back ahead of time. And I thought, oh, that was obviously pure bullshit then. Wow, fantastic, great. Yeah, so it's going to be...
we're going to miss. We're going to miss Taki Minamino.
Well,
basically,
now you said it. I mean,
I thought of it as I was listening to, I was watching Voldy on the Spot last night. And that was when you and Jan started talking about the cups, I thought, I now miss Taki even more.
100%.
Because this was his competition last year. He rocked it.
Would you like to see a nice gathering of the children as well? In this, yeah. I think primarily of all of them, the one I'm looking forward to seeing getting a full game is Ramsey. I really liked what the few minutes he put in, and I think if you had Ramsey and Elliott and Elliott might even be risked, but if you did have Ramsey and Elliott and Carvalho really doing their thing, and the likes, as you say, of Tsimikas maybe supporting him, maybe Jim Milner and a few boys like that, it could be fun. It could be a fun game. It's League One opposition at the end of the day. They're going to be well up for it, of course. I think it's at their place, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's going to be one of those games. Jan was talking about those games last night. He's like the game against Leeds. He said their games were. The game against Forest, they're games where you can come a cropper. Even the best teams can come a cropper because it's a tight little ground. They're really, really up for it. They get everybody behind the ball. They hit you on the break, all that kind of stuff. He was comparing and contrasting that with Leeds coming to our place and wiping the floor with us. That's a totally different kettle of fish. But it will be one of those. And the more of the children we see, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And I think I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. It's going to be one of those games. And you are confirming here in the chat that you're on raw duty for this game, Guy.
Unless we lose. Then I'll be in the sea. So,
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. I'm actually looking forward to it, I must admit, far more than I am to Tottenham. Although part of me can't wait to see that either. It's so sad looking at the squad here on the official website and seeing the lads that we can't call on because of the various injuries and stuff. It's really, really annoying. But hopefully, as you guys say, we'll start picking people back up, and into the second half we can do a little bit of a reboot. I wanted to talk to you then, just to wrap up the show this evening, about what you think might make some good topics when the World Cup is on for however many 100 days it's on, and we're left in the Reds wilderness and still wanting to put out this podcast. I'd like to talk about things that are relevant to football in general and the Reds. And so the thing that I'm going to do a show with Dave on this in a bit more depth, but I'd like to maybe introduce the topic on our show with you guys. And it's the notion of client journalism, which I've noticed is becoming very much a thing. You're seeing these prominent journalists in national papers, and they are coming out and they're shilling hard for certain teams we don't need to talk about them now. We'll talk about the specifics of who and what teams and what journalists. Yeah, perhaps there might even be another comparatively rich crew who
I can't cough saying Man City, so I'll just say it.
so it's a thing that's creeping in, and it's linked to a greater sort of societal malaise as well, and outside of sport situation too, where we do see that actually opinions can be bought, and that is a real worry. We were famously living in a post-truth society. It seemed like something broke around the time in 2016 when the orange fella got in power, and just nobody seemed to really believe anything anymore. And then you have these po-faced, inverted commas, broadsheet journalists scribing pieces which are basically fanboy propaganda, and it's dangerous because people believe that crap and they accept it, and then it becomes the accepted, and then Sky push it, and then it's round and round and round we go. So I look forward to talking about that one. I just want to tease that as one of the topics, and also to get you guys to be thinking about it, like I'll do whatever you've come up with. So Lisa Marie, what was the topic that you thought of that we might do a show on?
Well, after listening to Mr. Hendrick on his daily show today talk a little bit about the need for concussion protocols, that kind of crossed my mind as something that maybe we could look into a little bit more. And I would kind of be interested to know what, if anything, I know they've really put some in place in the youth leagues over here. So I don't know if that's, happened on the other side of the pond or not, but maybe even, kind of pull that in a little bit as well.
Yeah, I like that, and that's actually a nice wide-ranging chat that we can take a lot of things in, and actually we'll probably go to the Hendrick well there, because himself and Gags did an interview quite a while back.
Yeah, I wanted to try to dig that out because
worth finding.
Yeah,
worth finding, and there were lots of interviews around the time, and then that movie came out as well. And there was a lot of Concussion. The Will Smith one, called Concussion. There was a lot of sense being talked around the subject in sports media and awareness raising, and we were talking about how rugby are kind of way ahead on this. So very interesting. And interesting even to hear Kloppo talking, I think it was today in his press conference, I saw it today anyway, he was asked about Jimmy Miller, and he was talking about, well, the tomorrow he can do non-contact training, the day after he can do full contact training, and so that's how it's going to be. Obviously he's not going to be involved against Tottenham, and probably just about involved in time if he's got, I think, full contact training on Tuesday. I think when it wasn't tomorrow and the next day, it was, I think, Monday and Tuesday, he said. So that's where we are with that, and that's a very interesting one. I'm looking forward to that. We've got two doozies here already. And Guy, did you come up with a topic for something that we could ramble about during the World Cup?
TIPTOES is an hour and a half long, so maybe we could see how far we get through that without dying.
Watch along.
Yes. I think a safe one's World Cup memories, because I think we all have that World Cup as we were growing up. Might be different for you, Lisa Marie, because you obviously got into football late. Maybe. Were you asked about 94?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I remember my brother watching it more than anything.
Yeah, because everyone hates 2002, but I love that shit. I love everyone complaining about World Cups being on in the morning. I'm like sat there in school assembly like, Brazil, let's go.
Yeah, actually, I think you were saying this in the show recently, where basically you were cheering for Brazil against England, right?
Yeah. Michael Owen tried to ruin. Yeah.
Absolutely.
None of that shite, Michael, you little prick.
Yeah, I think World Cup memories is a belter, and we could actually extend it out to other like broader sporting memories as well, like other things that stand out for you as big sporting memories in your past as well. So that's so much material potential there as well. Love it. Love it. Now, we are coming up on the hour, and I do want folks to get used to us doing around that. So before we do just finish up, is there anything anybody wants to plug or say by way of an outro? Lisa Marie, have you anything that you wanted to recommend or plug or finish with?
Well, just a couple minutes ago, as you all were talking, I had to quickly mute because child number 2 came bursting into my office here to present me with an acceptance letter to the University of Dayton. So, yay. He's got 2 colleges he's been accepted to. So that's where we're living.
That's well done. Well done to child number 2.
He has somewhere to go.
That's
so yeah, no, other than that, I'm not on Nina's show this week because I've got 65 other things going on Sunday, but I think that's probably a good thing because I'm half convinced I might be a jinx since I was on after both Forest and Leeds. So, and I'm slated to Southampton. So if they win this week and then we lose against Southampton, it is definitely me. Possibly. I don't know. Anyway. But no, other than that, have a good week, everyone. It's decided to be not really second summer here again, but it's gotten warm again this week, but it's supposed to get cool again. So
your ever-changing climate.
I know. It's just, I just like to cue everyone in, but yeah, it's been a little bit unseasonably warm this week, but I think it's supposed to drop again. And I'm currently only 5 hours behind y'all because our time doesn't change until this Saturday. As opposed to my usual.
Your daylight savings is a bit askew with ours, all right. And just in case anybody's wondering, climate report for this corner of rural Ireland, it's fucking raining again. That's basically it. Every day, every single day. And my grass in my field is so long that it will kill my lawnmower, and I can't get at it because it's just raining every day.
Now, is your garden still going, or have you?
Oh, pretty much everything's closed down now. So it's going to be maintenance and.
Yeah, I had a salad at lunch today with the last tomato from my dad's garden. It made me sad.
That is sad. I used the last of my chilies in a lovely beef chili that I made, and nobody else can eat apart from me because it's too hot.
Well done. You sure you didn't do that on purpose?
No, I absolutely did do it on purpose. Guy, what about you?
And
sorry.
89 days.
89 days in the cryptic countdown. Guy, what about you? Anything you wanted to finish with or recommend or plug?
Well, I started with Matthew McConaughey, and as I was scrolling Twitter in the background, a nice little news story popped up for me.
Oh.
Matthew McConaughey's mum refused to cover Dad's huge manhood when he died during sex. Goodbye.
Well, now that fits right in.
Speaking of manhood, has anyone watched the little video that Ali put out earlier today?
I thought that was going a very different direction, Lisa Marie, to be honest.
No.
No.
Allison put out a little instructional, informative video about, screening for testicular cancer. So anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just assumed it would be how to do barbecue because that's basically what he's always doing. But that's
baptizing and barbecuing. That's all you need.
I saw a thread of Alison in hats photos there a couple of weeks ago, and it made for very diverting viewing. I'd imagine
it would for you, yes.
Yeah, I like a beard, I like a hat, I like Alison. Come on, what's not to love in this? And I would just like to finish by plugging all the shows on Anfield Index and Anfield Index Pro. A lot of people putting a lot of work into a lot of good content. Every one of them is worthy of your attention. And obviously you can't divide your attention across everything, but maybe try a new one. Go and have a look at the catalogue. I'm not going to start picking shows out because if I do that, I'll leave one out and then I'll feel like crap afterwards. But go and have a look, see what's available. And do a lucky dip if you on a show that you haven't listened to before, because like I say, all these people are doing really good work for the channel and in the long run for you guys to listen to. So give it a go. Anyway, let's wrap it up. You heard Lisa Marie Hanahan. You heard Guy Drinkel. I've been Trev Downey. This is the Anfield Index Podcast, and we'll be back next week.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.